They'll loosen up that line. You won't see 11 players within 5 yards of that body.
I think I mentioned, a bludgeoning or something like that. That's what they came out and did.
7 state championships since 2014.
I tell you what, for those young men, there's no better feeling right now.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Fyffe Focus, the podcast, here on a brand new week on the Thursday of the NCAA Tournament. And boy, we've got a lot to discuss. We're short a few guys tonight, as you can see on your screen. If you're listening, you don't see them on Spotify, but you'll hear the voices of myself, Adam Ward, alongside Greg Mears, JB, Drew, and JJ, unable to be with us tonight due to various reasons, whether it be schoolwork, work itself, or a not so good experience at the dentist earlier in the day of recording. But we hope to get them back next week. In the meantime, it allows us several opportunities to welcome in some special guests, and we've got a guest-filled episode for you tonight. We are joined tonight by Cody Walker from our Brewer broadcast team on WRAB 107 FM AM 1380, as well as the ahsfhs.org website that many of you probably use to find out any of your information you want to know about high school sports. Cody is going to be joining us for the next while. We'll get him welcomed in just a moment. I want to tell you that Fyffe Focus tonight is brought to you by our friends at Froggy Freeze. Again, our friends over at Froggy Freeze, Levon and Miss Johnson. Listen, oh my goodness, I got in trouble. I got to share this. I got in trouble because I mentioned in last week's podcast about how I may have to get Froggy Freeze and the Froggy Freeze Shaved Ice trailer, one of the three that they have, over to my house or over to wherever we're doing my wife's birthday party in May. And she looked at me dead serious about 2 days ago, and she said, "I know you don't think I listen, so you're getting me, you're getting Froggy Freeze to come to my birthday party?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, she does listen. She does listen." Some folks might say, "Well, he was just making a selling point." No, I'm like, look, we're gonna have to invite a lot of people to your birthday party, in order to cover that cost of getting them to come out there. But that's just one of the things that they do. They'll come out for birthday parties. They'll come out for church events, social functions of any kind. We over the weekend I was at an event, and you need shaved ice at these things, especially with the weather fixing to warm up. I know this week started a little cool, but we're going to warm up and it's going to get hotter, and you're going to need a cool treat. And by the way, if you're out at these baseball games, like tonight, for instance, it's probably going to be a little cool out there. They still have hot chocolate. They still have coffee, hot apple cider. They've got it for you. It's our friends over at Froggy Freeze bringing you our Fyffe Focus segment each and every week, the podcast that is. And like I said, these folks are just the best. Dealing with them. Greg, I want to give you an opportunity because I know you're close to these people. Tell us a little bit more about why Froggy Freeze is sort of becoming integral with Fyffe the last few years.
Well, first off, these folks are fantastic. I've known them for, I think we figured out it was 40-something years.
Yeah.
And they're like brothers and sisters to me. They really are. And they're just genuinely great people. They'll do anything in the world for you. Both of them, like you said, retired teachers. And just doing something on the side now, kind of in retirement. And they're there. They're part of Fyffe. They've been listening to you, Adam, for years. My friend Billy, the one I played with, I don't think he's missed a game in probably 20 years at least that I know of. And so they're just true Fyffe Red Devils inside and out. Levon, hey, he graduated from North Sand Mountain. Eider, actually. I think he's a Hornet. But we've converted him now, so he's a good Red Devil with the rest of us.
We forgave JJ, so we'll forgive him.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, once again, Froggy Freeze bringing you not only this week's podcast, but every week for the last few weeks, and they'll be with us through the end of the month at least. And we may have a surprise coming up in next week's podcast. I don't want to ruin it where Froggy Freeze is concerned, but Greg and I last week got to talk, and we had this wild hair idea. And I think we may try to act on it a little bit later this week in preparation for next week's podcast. So you're not going to want to miss that. And Levon and Miss Johnson, we may be headed your way. That's the only hint you're going to get. That's the only hint you're going to get. Let me give you the number, 256-717-7239. Again, 256-717-7239. If you want Froggy Freeze to come out to your next ball club event, church event, family function, whatever it may be, get Froggy Freeze out there and they can help you with whatever. Now, what's coming up on this week's podcast? Again, we're going to be talking with Cody Walker, one of our special guests tonight, one of three that we're going to have. I'll tell you more about the others in just a moment. With Cody, we're going to talk high school sports overall, not just Fyffe and what goes on with Fyffe. Bro, as I mentioned, Cody is a part of the Brewer broadcast team on WRAB 107 FM AM 1380, and he also contributes to the AHSFHS.org, the Alabama High School Football Historical Society. Also coming up tonight, Fyffe's focus tonight, that's what we've deemed this particular segment, Fyffe's actual focus, will be on Mr. and Mrs. Fyffe, otherwise known as Kaden Sharp and Katie Edge, and they will join us coming up a little bit later on in the show. Also tonight, where was Greg? As Greg returns to us, he missed last week. The T-shirt segment coming your way alongside 10 minutes of crap, and also finally what's coming up at Fyffe High School. Again, first of all, Cody Walker, you see him, we finally get you on the pod. Cody, you and I have been talking about this for a few weeks, and you've got me even listening to Mr. David Parker and the guys on the Historical Society's podcast. I actually went all the way back to, I think it's July of last year when they first dropped the first episode, maybe early August. I've gone back and I'm listening to that. First of all, welcome to the program. It's great to have you. And second of all, what in the world possessed somebody like David to really get involved in high school sports the way he has?
Well, thanks for having me on first. And yeah, Mr. Parker, yeah, he went back. He was starting to do this before he had a website. He was old school, going back into the libraries and looking at the old newspaper clippings, the microfilm, for people who remember those days. And going back and finding all these things, and just he had notebooks and notebooks. I think he talks about in one of his books about it was an old coach from down around the Mobile and area that became a statistician later on, that had just notebooks and notebooks of just all these records and stuff. That was really the basis for what he started to collect, and he decided that he was going to start a website with it. And I think it was around 2005, 2006, and it really took off from there. And what really has made the site what it is just regular people. He got it started, and he's a integral part of it. He is the site basically. But what makes it keep going is just people like you and me and everybody else in the forums is the heartbeat of that site. And I encourage anybody out there who's interested in it, or hears you talk about it, or hear us talk about it, to go on there and go to the forums. And it's a year round of just geeks like me that get on there and talk about it, 12 months out of the year.
Well, he's got the I can't necessarily say the whole database into one book, because that would make that book, I don't even want to guess how thick, but for pretty much any school you can think of. I don't think it's available yet for all schools. I think he's working on that. I think you guys are working on that. But I know, for instance, if you're a Fyffe Red Devil, you can get the Fyffe book and get everything up to I forget what year it is, and I don't want to overstep my bounds there. But I know you brought me a book a year or two ago with every statistical category just about it you can think of that you guys can get a hold of. Now, we're not talking like passing yardage and rushing yardage and stuff like that, but if you want to know who the coach was in 1971, you can find that out. If you want to know what the score was of a game in 1984, you can find that out. If you want to see average margin of victory, what the next victory number will be for that program. Is it going to be victory number 500? How many games in a row have they lost? What's their records for this? I mean, you guys, as best as you possibly can, without having a national guideline system, if you will, put in place nationwide, without having something like that, this is, in my opinion, not just a premier website for high school sports in Alabama, but, and Greg could probably echo this too, it is a premier high school website destination for in pretty much all of America. It's one of the best.
Yeah, there are other states that are have come to him to set up their own kind of sites like that. He actually started one for Mississippi and Tennessee, and they got to a point where there were people in those states that could take it over and are doing that kind of the same kind of template that he set. And as far as the books go, they're updated every year. So he has a new printout every year. So that if you wanted to buy one now for Fyffe, you would have last year's records and schedule in it already. So that's going. So those yearly yearbooks, he calls them, will be are updated every year. So anytime you buy them, they're always going to be up to date. And he has those, like you said, they're expanding the different teams. He started with the bigger, more well-known teams, and the first print. And ever since then, it's expanded to more and more teams that you get the team-specific ones. But he also has books on rivalries around the state and the dynasties, like the Fyffes and the Hazelwoods. That I didn't even know about Hazelwood. That was a little bit before my time. They were still school when I was around, but going back and looking at their dominance in 1A, 2A football, it's nice to keep that history alive.
Well, Greg can certainly tell you on Monday nights when my crew and I, as Greg is a part of, when we get together here at the house on Mondays, and I try to get some sheets similar to what I've got here, some prep sheets like what I do for the podcast each and every week, but specifically geared toward that game of that week, and especially the bigger games like when Fyffe and Pisgah are matching up for a region crown. You want to have as much info as you possibly can. And on those Monday nights when we're gathering together to share a meal, to watch film, and to lay down some track for pregame, in some of those instances, we are actually at the last minute still getting on our phones and making sure that we've got the things updated. And Greg can tell you, and Greg, I want you to jump in on this. Sometimes, we might miss something, or we might catch something and say, whoa, now that's an interesting tidbit that we didn't know, or that, man, the listeners probably need to hear that.
Yeah, especially around playoff time. I know we seem to use it more and more then because, again, we're, not as quite familiar with some of the teams you're playing, depending on how they match up the regions. But, it's something that I think I discovered with a friend probably 5 years ago, 6 years ago, way before I joined the cast. And it is so fun, especially when you're an old timer like me. You start forgetting stuff. May or may not had a few concussions back then. I don't know, but it gets harder and harder to remember, what happened in 79 or 81 or things like that. So it's like a maze. It's like a little toy store. I get on it, click this guy, and then I wonder where that coach went after he left there. And then I wonder how that team did. And man, I can just sit there for hours on that thing. And Cody, if you would, could you tell the listeners how to get the book, where to purchase the books at, or how to order them?
They're on Amazon. You can just search for the FHS on there, or they're on the website. He's got the links. Any page that you go on to look at the team, like Fyffe, it'll be right at the top. It says purchase the new book this year, and it'll take you right to the Amazon site. And if you're anywhere in the world, that it will get to you. Amazon kind of ships anywhere and everywhere. So that'll get there. And you can go down some rabbit holes on HSF for sure. I have done it many a times, and but it's not just for football. Everybody, that's the big bread and butter that everybody goes to, but it's all athletics. In Alabama, and he's expanding that, and it comes from people like us. It's not just him; it's anybody that goes on there. And if you have information and you've either done it yourself, or you found it at a library, or you have books, if you're a scorekeeper, or your dad or granddad was a scorekeeper, and you find those books, I'm sure he'd love to find that out. So I encourage, like I said, I encourage anybody to get on the forums, just if nothing else, just to have the conversations that we have.
Right. So for those watching, those listening on Spotify, I didn't give the socials earlier, by the way. Surely you know them by now, folks. But whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or you're listening on Spotify, you may be asking the question, okay, well, you've talked about the website as a whole and what goes into it, but what does Cody actually do for the website? And it's sort of a unique answer, and I know it, but I'll let Cody tell it in his words. What do you do, Cody, for the Alabama High School football Alabama High School football historical society? That's a long name, by the way, but it works.
Yeah, it is. I still just call it the historical society is what I go by a lot of times. Is what I call it, but
I'll leave it with that. The historical society.
Yeah, I am just a very, very, very small part of it. I got started on it because he had the little pictures at the top, the helmets.
Mm-hmm.
You see when you click on any team, it'll show the helmets, and he had them there from the beginning. And by about 2012, they were getting out of dated, and I contacted him and said, I found this template on Photoshop that had a helmet template that I think I could do something for those, and he was actually going to get rid of those altogether because he had a graphic designer that put those out originally in 2006, and they were out of date.
Yeah.
And they were just not in, and it wasn't his expertise to do anything with those. He's like, sure, anything you can do, and it just kind of took off from there. So that's my main contribution is any of those has a white background on there. That's what I did. And it's by about June or July it starts picking up, and then by if I don't have everything, I've got it down to where I can swap things out pretty quickly with new designs and stuff that teams come out. But there are some schools out there now. It's a lot harder now than it was back then to keep up with them, at least keep them up to date, because like there's some of these bigger schools that have 3 or 4 different helmets a year, and so it's like you just got to pick one and go with it. But or get the intricate designs on there. And I'm more of a simplistic person, but that's what I do. And it's also some, especially around Marshall County and Morgan County, just around my area, of up to date with scores and records and stuff, especially the spring sports. That a lot of people don't really cover that much. That's my contribution, as little as it is, which I will stress is a very small part of it. There's dozens and dozens of other people who contribute a lot more than I do.
It's a network that is truly statewide, as I have learned, not only in talking with you, but in picking up and listening to the podcast. I'm currently in episode 2. I'm not a big podcast listener, even though I'm on a podcast right now. I've never been a big podcast listener. So doing this podcast is actually teaching me how to listen to podcasts because I have a music background. I was in music. I did music through college. So I'm learning how to do a podcast, do podcasts, whether it be to host, listen, whatever the case is, because of what we're doing here. But Greg, you might find this a little funny. One thing that, when I learned about what Cody does for the Historical Society, see, I got it right there. When I learned what he did, the way I kind of figured it out was one day he texted me and said, "Are you going to the Morgan County Media Day?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm headed there now." He said, "Well, do me a favor. If you see any helmet that for a team that is not their normal helmet, if they bring a helmet, they put it on the table and that's not their normal helmet, please take a picture of it and send it to me so I can use it for the website and update their helmet on the website." And that's when I went, "Oh, you're that guy. You're that guy that I've been stealing the gifts from. You're that guy that I'm right clicking and downloading and having to, because when you download something that's already been uploaded, it doesn't quite necessarily download at the same quality. It never will. It never does unless you get an original. And so I have to go back and fix it, because we use, on some of our graphics for the station, we use the helmets for our scoreboard graphics and such. So and Cody one day this past season, when he seen me working on one, kind of struggling with it on a white helmet with a white background, he said, "You know what? I've got every helmet for every team in this state on my computer at home. I can just give it to you and you can use it and copy and paste it. It's still in the Photoshop format." And I went, "Where have you been all my life?" "Well, bro." And so I think it was like a couple of days later, he showed up with a thumb drive in his hand and said, "Here you go, plug this in." Plug it in. By the way, I need to get that thumb drive. I think Michael deleted them. Just saying. But he showed up with a thumb drive, and I don't know how many helmets. Cody, how many helmets, before we move on, how many helmets off the top of your head do you know?
Oh, yes. It's well over 200, because you got to think every school plus everyone's been updated at least once since 2014, when I probably finished all the ones around here. So yeah, at least 200.
Wow. So Cody, let's talk about what you do specifically for a minute, how you and I kind of got hooked up here at the radio station in particular, because every year you begin to, I think, take on a more expanded role. And I want to make sure, first of all, I want to tell everybody how much I truly appreciate you and what you do, because every year it seems like we ask you for just a little bit more, just a little bit more. And outside of your normal job, you always seem ready, willing, capable, able to jump in. And one of the things is you act as our sideline reporter for the Brewer Patriot football broadcast on WRAB 107.1 FM, AM 1380, which Fyffe folks will be a little familiar with. We've gone on that frequency a few times in the last few years for certain playoff games when WRAB was in it. But not only that, you and roaming the sideline with Coach Plunkett, but the last year especially, you've kind of become a staple on Coach's Breakfast on Friday mornings, not just talking about Brewer, WRAB, Fyffe, or Austin, or whomever is playing. And you kind of, I call him the human calculator, Greg. The human football machine, if you will. Ronnie jokes, push the button, turn him on, because this young man, Cody Walker, is one of the most knowledgeable people I've ever met when it comes to high school sports, in particular high school football. And if you don't know it, give him about 3 seconds to kind of get the gears moving up top, and he'll get it. While we've got you, Cody, let's talk about high school sports overall for a moment and allow you to kind of show off some of your skills, shall we say, if you will. You in particular, more than anybody that I know of, I called JJ on this crew the basketball savant, aficionado, whatever. You are high school sports, I think, overall, especially when we need you for football and such. Like I said before, within 5 seconds, you've got it. What do you think the state of high school sports solely in the state of Alabama is like right now as we talk?
It's in flux. That's really the question, is what is, because things like NIL trickling down from the college ranks down into high school. There's no laws that have been exactly for high school athletes that have been on the books yet. How's that going to affect things? The talk for a long time has been about recruiting and, the private school versus public school debate that hasn't settled down any at all. So just all these unanswered questions where we just really don't know what the future looks like. We're just kind of going year by year. It seems like the HSAA is kind of going cycle by cycle. They may have a long-term 10-year, 5-year plan, but we're just not privy to it maybe. But as a fan of high school sports, just the unknowns are it's both interesting and plus a little worrying of where high school athletics will be in the next decade.
Sure. I know I would totally agree with that. And Greg, one thing we haven't mentioned is that Cody not only does our football stuff and does Coach's Breakfast with us. Cody, especially this last year, I ducked out of doing basketball this past season because with everything that is going on, this, as you know, Greg, this was the busiest year that I've ever had in doing anything that I've ever done with the radio station. And I always get tired at the end of football season, but this year I was outright exhausted. And I went to Cody and I said, look, I'm going to have to turn a lot of this basketball stuff over to you, especially where WRAB is concerned. Cody, once Brewer football is over, Cody takes over and kind of takes the reins between him and Archie Anderson on doing our WRAB basketball, because they do every game. They follow them unless they go to Buckhorn. Then we're not doing the game. Sorry. Because we're not paying those darn bucks, any bucks. We're not paying those bucks any bucks. But terrible joke, I know. But Cody is integral in that. So he gets his hands dirty in more than just football. And so with that, Cody, you mentioned, I think influx is a good word. One thing that I don't know how much of a stabilizing force it can be or would be. Is it government legislation that needs to get involved? Is it the HSAA that would need to get involved with this NIL, or a combination of both, or where do you stand on that? And Greg, I want you to jump in with your thoughts on that too in a moment. But Cody, tell me what you think.
It would have to be a combination of both, because a lot of people think that the HSAA is tied with the Department of Education, the State Department of Education. It's not. It's its own separate corporation that's not beholden to anybody. So it's their own separate thing. So any rules they make would have to, I think anything that would be over them would have to come from like a legislative, because we've seen, with, in college, the litigation going back and forth all over the place of, well, this jurisdiction, that jurisdiction. If you start having the HSAA just have a blanket rule, and then that's not It's like the laws in the state haven't caught up to that. Then you've got who's in charge, whose jurisdiction is it. So they would have to do it in conjunction with each other. I would think, not just one just unilaterally saying it. And I think if you're going to have a lasting uh, effect that's not going to be tied up in courts for years to come, they would have to work on something together, or at least be in agreement on what the final product would look like.
Greg?
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely correct. It's going to have to be, the legislation is going to have to be involved because, again, you start talking about money. So is it wages? Are they going to get taxed? Exactly how does it work? And I think if you saw that when the NIL first came out with college, you had a different rule in Florida. You had a different rule in Texas. You had different rules in Alabama. Everybody was doing their own, hey, this is what you can do. This is what you can't. So the biggest thing that the AHAA and Alabama needs to do is look at that college model and see everything that's wrong with it, which is pretty much everything, and learn from somebody else's mistakes. You can't have it like college is. And I know it's going to be on a littler, much smaller scale, obviously, with high schools. But again, if you don't, I mean, it's going to be just a madhouse, with people moving here, moving there. And again, Cody was talking about recruiting in the first place. That gets brought up all the time now without any NIL, without any type of things like that. So my gosh, that the athletic association is going to have so much on their hands if the NIL does come down to high school. How do they control that? How do they keep their rules still in place and honor whatever NIL that the legislation comes up with?
Yeah, and you've already heard that from coaches. Some of the guys and the biggest and most powerful coaches, Coach Thompson, was just talking about this this week. Mark Freeman was talking about it on AL.com about how he's hearing of schools in Georgia and Florida actually recruiting their kids to move to Georgia and Florida because they already have high school laws on the books for NIL to come across state lines. So that's a problem too of keeping athletes in state, not just within school district lines.
So we transition now as we allow Cody Walker to step off for a moment. We transition into this opportunity to allow two students to come on and be with us here as a part of the show tonight. Cody's going to jump back on with us in just a few moments. We get ready to talk with seniors Kaden Sharp and Katie Edge. As we move forward with this week's episode of Fyffe Focus, the podcast, we are so glad to be joined by student number 2 and student number 3 on the podcast. Our first student was Tucker Wilkes just a few weeks ago in his winning of the award of two-way lineman of the year. This one is not so much sports related as just what it is, an overall aspect of what it means to be Fyffe. And in particular, we're talking about the award of Mr. and Miss Fyffe High School. In this case, we're talking about none other than Mr. Kaden Sharp and Miss Katie Edge. First of all, Katie, we got the dynamic or the duo of the K's here tonight. First of all, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad you guys are taking a few moments to talk with Greg and I. We're short a few guys, so obviously this won't be as long as what you might be scared of taking. But first of all, and Katie, I want to start with you because Kaden, if you ain't learned this already, ladies first. Katie, when you found out that you were going to be Miss Fyffe, and of course, for those who don't know, that this is something that gets voted on by the staff of the school. This isn't like a homecoming thing, popularity pick out or anything. But when you found out that the staff had picked you, had selected you to be Miss Fyffe, what did you think? What ran through your mind?
I mean, it was just an honor because it knows that you were like my character shines out to the teachers, and like what I'm doing like is seen, and it don't go unnoticed. That teachers do see what I'm doing and trying to do.
Well, one of the things, that folks need to really understand is it's not solely about academia. It's not about, this is a 4.0, made hundreds in all 4 years of high school type of thing. This is a little bit of a well-rounded award in that we're talking about not just academia, but the type of leadership skills you display. We're talking about how involved you are in your school, whether it be extracurriculars or how much do you help other students, what kind of clubs are you in, and that sort of thing, and your the way that you treat people. And I think it was just a few weeks ago, Greg, you can help me on this. It may have been a few weeks ago. That was one of my 10 minutes of crap segments, was talking about how you treat people and especially in the workplace. Kaden, I've known you for a long time. I've known both of you for a long time, but I've really got to know Kaden through things like church and such. And Kaden, for you to be selected on the other side of that as Mr. Fyffe, what did that mean to you? What did you think?
Well, it's hard not to say, the same things, but, teachers and stuff, it feels good knowing that it was faculty based and not like, student based, because it's one thing for, your peers and stuff to think a lot about you, but it's, a whole nother thing for adults and, people who are in authority over you to think well of you as well. So it definitely helps to know that, that hopefully it'll carry on in my character into the workplace, and, maybe one day my bosses and people like that will like me as well.
Both of you are seniors, and in just a shorter time than what you both can imagine, you're going to be wrapping up your high school career, and to win this and to have this recognition, as you said, I think both of you kind of echoed it. It can be something that will carry you a little bit further down the road into your work environment, into your next school environment, should you choose to move on to college and that level of learning. One thing that I think stands out, though, is that as seniors, not only is it a reflection upon your senior year, but Katie, really your time overall at Fyffe, because I know you and your family as well. I know your dad really well, and have gotten a chance to be in church with you guys and as well, and see you for more than just a name or a face that's associated with Fyffe. When you look back at your whole high school career, and you know that you carry now this forever, you will be in the yearbooks now as Miss Fyffe. And Kaden, it'll be the same question for you in a moment, only Mr. Fyffe, of course. But how do you reflect back on your time at Fyffe?
It really has made me the person I am. I've learned countless lessons that I'll go on. I've made memories, and it's just shaped me and maybe a better person, and gave me skills to be a person in society once after high school, and when I in my choice of job too.
Kaden?
Yeah, so I know this is not supposed to be sports related, but to me, Fyffe is the greatest high school to be at. So to be representing Fyffe in that way is great. I mean, what more can I ask for athletically? To be all the successes that Fyffe has had. Just being a part of that means a lot. Being a part of like a legacy. Sometimes us players and stuff don't really realize, how huge that is. So definitely being part of something bigger than me has been huge looking back.
Well, Kaden, I'll stick with you for a moment here. You, many folks know that I think the last time that they may have gotten to hear from you was either your Fyffe focus, specifically all about you in the season, or unfortunately when you went down the week of the first round of the playoffs. First of all, tell the folks how you're doing.
Oh, I'm doing great. Started jogging. I'm getting there, getting better every day. So it's definitely been a long road, and I still got longer to go, but doing good.
For those who don't remember, Kaden virtually tore almost everything in his knee up to the point where he had to have surgery to fix it, and was on crutches for several weeks and could barely, keep that thing where he needed to. It was hard on you. And I remember being there and seeing those things, seeing you go through that. I know that was hard, especially being your senior year. What can you take away from that, and what would you leave? And I would ask Logan the same thing. The only difference is it didn't happen in Logan's senior season for him. What would you leave behind for folks to know that maybe, if they end up having to go through this down the road, what would you leave behind to tell them?
Yeah, well, the biggest thing is not to lose your value. You still have something to bring to the table and bring to the team, even when you're injured. Because it's easy for a lot of people whenever they get hurt to be like, well, I can't play. I don't have anything to contribute. But, you still have insight. You can see things that people may not see on the field, and you can, even if you don't have any football knowledge whatsoever and you can't exactly see what you're seeing, everybody can always be an encouragement. You know, you can always encourage your teammates. It takes no skill to have a positive attitude. You know, even when you're down and you just made a terrible defensive drive or, you know, the other team scored, you can always still be an encouragement to your teammates to fight back, you know, no matter what kind of skills you have. So that's the advice I would give to somebody who has gone through what me or Logan had gone through is don't lose, you know, your value and lose your, you know, hope that, you know, it'll get better to, you know, eventually you'll be right back to where you were. So
and maybe better with the technology
Yeah.
and of 2024. It's incredible about what we can do. Well, I'm glad you brought up value, Kaden, because I'm going back to Katie now because Katie's value was recognized earlier. We brought it up. Greg, help me out here. 3 podcasts ago, I guess, about the DAR Good Citizen.
Yeah, actually 2, I think. I think it was the week before last.
I think you're right. And as I mentioned, folks, we're talking to the Fyffe representative of the DAR Good Citizenship Award. First of all, Katie, congratulations on that. Tell me about that. When I was in high school, I graduated in 09. If it was a thing, it was the furthest thing from me because I'm going to be honest, I barely graduated high school. I barely passed. Math was my Achilles heel. I'm not a numbers guy. But you received the Fyffe DAR Good Citizen Award. Tell us about that.
It's based on your leadership skills, your integrity, your character, and your patriotism towards your school. So if you show those skills, they will recognize you, and then you have to write an essay, and then they have a student from each school in the County, and they read out the winning essay, which I clearly did not win.
Oh,
but the winner goes on to like district and then like state and the national level of the award. So.
Well, very nice, very nice. So, did you? I don't know a whole lot about this, so I may be asking a question that you kind of might have just answered. But I know that there's a scholarship portion involved in this. Was that part of what you just explained, or is that something different? Are you going to be involved in that?
Well, like you get money. Like you get money for being your school and then certain amount, and then whoever wins it gets another certain amount of money. Then I think when the further you go, I think the scholarship opportunity is there.
I got you. Well, what does that mean for you to be recognized for that? First of all, is that something you had to apply for, or was that something you were recommended for? Or?
I was recommended for. I was like, I think Mr. McCollum, either Miss Hill or Mr. McCollum recommended me for that. And you have to fill out like an application, like a resume based, like what you're involved in, and then write an essay and have a letter of recommendation to send in. But you are picked personally from your school.
I got you. Well, congratulations on that, Katie. That is a wonderful thing. I know we mentioned it a few podcasts ago, like Greg said, and I want to, as we get ready to let you guys go, see, it wasn't too hard. I told you it wasn't going to be that hard. But one of the things is, as both of you are seniors, and again, I mentioned it, you're wrapping it up your high school career. Talk to me about what your whole experience at Fyffe has been like, and last of all, the legacy that you hope to leave, not just whether it be championship rings and trophies, Kaden, or awards for being a good person, but overall, what have you taken away from it? What have you learned, and what do you hope to leave behind?
I've taken away that community is everything. The community at Fyffe is so strong; it's unmatched. The support from Fyffe is unreal. So if you have a community behind you, you can do everything. And I've seen that mostly through the football as being a coach's daughter, but every sport, they're worried about every sport. They're not solely worried about what you do on the field, but they're worried about who you are off the field. And my legacy I want to leave is to shine the light of Jesus, basically. Like you have to be different, and that's okay, but being different for him will really reward you in the end.
Amen. Kaden?
Yeah, well, the first thing I taken away is, hard work can get you pretty much anywhere. And not even just really on a sports aspect, but just even academics, life in general. If you really put your mind to something, you can do it. And there's nothing that's going to stop you from doing it, you know? And I think that's really been instilled in me from coaches and, you know, really just how to work hard and how to, you know, not feel sorry for yourself. And just because you're feeling bad on Monday morning, there's still work to be done, you know, there's still a job to be done, and you better, you know, get your tail in gear and do it. So it's kind of instilled in me that kind of work ethic that I feel like everybody needs to, you know, be successful in life. And again, the legacy that I hope to leave behind is, you know, knowing that people saw something different in me, you know, saw Jesus in me. And, you know, for those who don't know, I am a preacher. I announced my call to preach not too long ago. And not just the fact that I was a preacher and I committed myself to preaching God's word, but more so Jesus than anything. Because I know, you know, millions of years from now, if the world lasts that long, they'll never remember who I am. They'll never really know who I am, but Jesus' name will last forever. So that's an important name to know.
That's right. That's right. One final question, Kaden. I'm going to gear this one towards you because it is connected to Katie through her dad. What's it like playing for Coach Edge? You know, because I ran into Katie and Coach a few weeks ago, and that's how I got hooked up with Katie to say, hey, would you be willing to come on the podcast? And she immediately, yeah, I would love to. Of course, I'm like, well, I need to, I'm asking a young lady, I need to talk to her daddy, and he's standing right here. And I love Coach Edge. He's one of the most genuine people you're ever going to meet. But what's it like playing for Coach Edge? I know everybody wants to talk about for Coach Benefield, but what's that like for Coach Edge? By the way, Coach Benefield watches these podcasts, just so you know, but what's it like playing, you know, and being under Coach Edge? What's he like?
So yeah, first off, I want to mention Coach Edge is like the funniest person. He has an incredible sense of humor, you know, incredible sense of sarcasm. You might not see that on the surface, but definitely when you get to know him, he has a sense of humor. But he definitely gets a lot of, you know, we know Coach Benefield treats the coaches just as bad, if not worse, as the players. And, you know, I don't know if it's because he's been coaching for so long or what, but he definitely gets a lot of it. But I definitely have a lot of respect for him, you know, teaching me, because he was my coach, you know, because being a linebacker for so long, you know, he was the linebacker coach, and just the things that he taught me, you know, along with the things that Coach Benefield probably taught him.
Yeah.
But it's just, he was definitely a mentor to me and definitely believed in me. But yeah, playing under him, he's definitely got character and good personality. So
fantastic. Greg, forgive me, I've not given you much of an opportunity to jump on the mic here.
No, really. I mean, I don't have any questions that much. First off, congratulations to both of you. And second off, I mean, listening to these two young lady and young man talk, you can see what the faculty and what everybody saw in them. Very easy to see why they made the choice to make them Mr. and Miss Fyffe.
Well, congratulations again, guys. I don't want to take up a whole lot more of your time. And I thought about asking you about future plans. I won't go that far yet because I know I've been in your shoes where you're probably still thinking about them and just trying to make sure you do the right thing and take the right path. Yeah. So best advice I could give you, pray about it. Pray about it. Talk to mom and dad and then pray some more. And then pray some more after that. And it'll all work out. Katie, Kaden, thank you so much for taking a few minutes to talk with us. And again, congratulations, Mr. and Miss Fyffe. And of course, again, Katie, on the DAR Good Citizenship Award for Fyffe High School. A huge congratulations to you both. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so now we welcome back Cody Walker back to the podcast. Cody, as we continue, you get to be a part of this next segment, and we're going to, like we mentioned before, we're going to keep you on the rest of the show here this evening. And we move to a sort of a fan favorite. Well, probably fan favorite's not the word. It's more of a group favorite, if you will, because Greg is one of the more interesting characters when it comes to finding these T-shirts, visiting all these high schools. The dude has a lot more time on his hands than I do. Maybe not as much these days with special little grandbaby that we see pictures of. And by the way, that was a cute one you posted the other day.
Thank you.
But tonight or today, whatever time you're listening to this, Greg, where were you for your T-shirt segment this week? Who you got?
All right. I'm going to do a little word association. If I say the word polka, what's the first word that comes to your mind? Dots. Exactly. So I was at the Polka High School Polka Dots. That is the name. The official name is The Dots. It's a school in Poco, West Virginia, and kind of a mediocre team right now. Not really doing well. I think they did 3 or 4 years ago they were in the playoffs, but kind of falling on some hard times right now. But they have one of the most ominous stadiums that I've ever been to.
Really?
You top the hill, go into the stadium, and all of a sudden in the background you see the nuclear power plant and the 3 cooling towers, which cannot be more than a half a mile from the school. And I need to figure out how to do this to get you some shots, but I've got a picture of the cooling towers between the goalposts and the little smoke trickling out of it. And it's just it was an awesome sight. Kind of eerie though.
Wow. I'm not wearing the shirt. I might have you beat though on being a little ominous. Not so much from the threat of being poisoned or something, but the simple fact, one of our schools that we cover in Tennessee on our Tennessee station, I think I've told Cody about this, the Trousdale County Yellow Jackets. They're kind of the Fyffe equivalent up there. In the last 25 years, they've got like 10 state championships and 15 seasons up there, or something to that effect. They've got a good football program. It's a good school, but what scares you about it is the county prison is right next to the high school. I mean, boom. And when I first got in, the school is located in Hartsville, Tennessee, right now, and it's called Hartsville because of it being in the heart of Trousdale County. And that's the high school named Trousdale County High School. The first time I went up there to go check out this new station that we had bought, my boss is that over there is that's the Mexican restaurant. They make great food there. There's the post office over there. That's the old time courthouse. It's been up and was erected 170 something years ago. Oh, and this over here is the school. That's where we're going to be calling all the games. Oh, nice. But what is that? They got barbed wire fence. Okay. Oh, no, that's not part of the school. That's the prison. Wait, what? That's the county jail. Michael, that's right next to the football field. Yeah, I know. It's there. What do they do if a prisoner escapes? What do you think they do? I don't know. That's what I'm asking for. Go on.
Ignore
lockdown.
the razor wire. Yeah, ignore the razor wire. Ignore the guard up in the guard stand up there. It's all good.
So I don't know if that beats. It certainly doesn't beat the name, the polka dots. And when I'm labeling this episode and giving the description, I got to be really careful because I don't want to sound, non-PC, shall we say? But no, that's interesting. I think I remember you sharing some of those pictures with us in a group text.
Yeah, I probably have. Yeah.
Don't they have polka dots like in the stadium, like on maybe the scoreboard or something?
They do. And of course you have the seniors, lined up on the thing and the little posters.
Yeah.
They were all in the middle of a polka dot. So it's kind of a red school colors, but all of them, they were in the middle of a polka dot. There were polka dots on the field. The only one that beats that, I'll wear it in the next week or two, is the Rocky Ford Melineers, which is in Colorado, and their mascots is cool, mean-looking watermelon. Well, that stadium had a big rock painted watermelon color, and it even had the seeds in the big rock. It was fantastic.
Wow. Cody, have you heard of anything so unique?
I have not. The colleges, Western Kentucky has the red thing. For
whatever he is.
Yeah. So seeing the unique ideas for mascots and stuff, that it always is better than the traditional lions and tigers and bears. So anything that is great. Yeah.
Now let's transition into what is truly the fan favorite. And I know it's a fan favorite because of what's been brought up to me, about 5 times now. It's our 10 minutes of crap segment. 10 minutes of crap. And Greg, I'm going to turn it right back over to you and let you kick things off. But before I do, I want to tell you about this mutual acquaintance of mine and Cody's. His name is Josh. And I saw Josh. We record on Monday, as many folks have figured out. And I saw Josh on Monday. And one of the things that he brought up was when you recording the podcast. And I said, we record tonight. We record every Monday night. And he began to chuckle. And I said, what is it? What's so funny? He said, man, I love listening to you guys, but I will never, ever, ever get over the greatest story I've ever heard told on a podcast. And I kind of looked at him funny, and he said, "The legend of the Fyffe turd." You have
The
a
elephant
fan, my
turd is
friend.
famous. It's famous, I promise.
You have a fan, and with that, kick us off. Please, good Lord, give us something to laugh at or something. What have you got for us on your segment for 10 minutes of crap?
Man, I got like 2 or 3 things that are bugging me right now. The first one is NCAA tournament. All right. Went to school at Alabama. Love Alabama basketball. Probably as much or more than football, because again, when I was down there for Bears last year or two. So football was kind of okay. But I want to know what the heck is up with this committee. And can we get away from committee somewhere? Because I'm sorry, if Alabama's a 4, I got you. How in the world is Auburn a 4? I mean, my gosh, that team is playing so well. I don't know what Bruce did to piss them off, if they're still mad about the barbecue or whatever it is. But my gosh, what are they? I mean, and not only are they sending them out to Spokane, they're sending them out. That's like the region of doom out there. I mean, my gosh, they got the number one seed overall, the number 2 seed overall. I mean, they have just done those poor guys wrong. Now, again, being an Alabama fan, I think it's kind of funny. Doesn't hurt my feelings any, but they definitely did those kids wrong. So that's number 1.
Let me
go
tell
ahead.
you,
Y'all talk about that.
Yeah, let's get on that, because let me tell you, the guy joining us this week is an Auburn fan. And Cody, one thing that we've been accused of on this podcast already is crapping on Auburn. Well, that's what happens when you get 4 or 5 Alabama fans. 4 Alabama fans and 1 Notre Dame fan who really couldn't give 2 shakes of a rat's furry behind. He just sits and watches the group text roll about Alabama basketball and how terrible they are, and then all of a sudden they win, and well, thank God for that. I do got to agree. First of all, I got to say it. Congrats to Bruce Pearl and the Auburn Tigers, 2024 SEC tournament champions. My bracket got blowed the crap up. I put that on the podcast last week, the SEC tournament bracket. And I thought after 2 days, man, I got this, man. This is easy. This one was easy. Nope. Mississippi State coming in blew Tennessee off the freaking board by nearly 30. I mean, it was bad. I mean, I text you guys, and it was like 20 points at that point. And I think Greg, you didn't even know it was happening at one point.
No.
And I couldn't believe it. And then boom, one by one, I had South Carolina beating Auburn only because Auburn this season had not played well away from Neville Arena, not up to the way that they do play at Neville Arena anyway, shall I say. Not that they ever played bad per se. They just didn't play as good. And so I picked South Carolina. Auburn won. I picked Kentucky. They got beat. I picked Alabama to beat Florida. Alabama couldn't get the stick out of their butt. And of course, speaking of Florida, that young man broke his leg in the opening 3 minutes of the game. I think that did play a factor. Cody, you can confirm or deny, as an Auburn fan, I think it did play a factor in Florida's mentality and the way the rest of that game went, especially happening that quick in the ball game, not even 3 minutes in. But I don't want to take anything away from Bruce Pearl and the Auburn Tigers, because I did get to watch. I didn't get to watch the championship. I did go back and see a bunch of the highlights. The whole tournament, Auburn just played out of their minds fantastic. So kudos to Auburn on that. And that's about as Auburn as you'll get out of me. That's all I'll say. Cody?
Yeah, I'm still kind of riding the high off that. Winning the SEC championship the way they did was great to see, is because nobody was really – they thought they'd have a good season, not a championship caliber season like they ended up having. And it did work out that the other top 3 seeds all lost badly. But they finally won a quote unquote close game. They won a single digit game against Mississippi State. So that they check that off their list, that they finally won a game by less than 10 points. So they got that off. They get to cut down the nets. And yes, like you said, the committee, I think they had the brackets penciled in last week.
Oh yeah, they must have,
because the tournaments didn't mean anything. Tennessee being a 3 seed, or were they ended up being a 2 seed, is ridiculous after getting blown out. So in all the other tournaments, I think the only thing that they change is when like an NC State runs the table and gets in. That's the only time they'll change anything from the end of the regular season. I think they've got it penciled in where everybody is, and then they just move them to the different. Their seedings are already set before the tournaments even start. So I don't think they even pay attention to those. So it didn't mean anything because, like you said, that is a tournament of death for Auburn. You got UConn and the number one overall seed. You got Iowa State that won the Big 12 in that region. So it's going to be a tough road. If they make it to the Final Four, they would have earned it out of that Final Four. But yeah, so I'm proud of the season they had, and just let the chips fall where they may at this point.
I'll ask you, Cody, since you are the resident Auburn fan here this evening. To Greg's point, why didn't Auburn at least get the 3 seed after winning the SEC? If Bama stayed 4, Auburn should have gone up to 3. I thought Alabama should have fell to 5 at least, maybe even 6. If they were, they're fortunate to stay at 4. Did the lack of strength of schedule hurt Auburn in the non-conference? And then, of course, if I remember correct, it was going into that first matchup with Alabama that Auburn had only played 1 or 2 quad 1 games and had lost both going into that game. And then they were 0-3 in that first loss to Alabama. They were 0-3 in quad 1 wins up to that point. Do you think that played a factor into the committee at all, the lack of strength in the non-conference and 0 quad 1 wins going into conference play?
The committee would probably say that because North Carolina being a 1 seed over Iowa State, who won their conference, staying at a 2, the number 1 2 seed, by the way, that they would say, or I think they even said that in the interview afterwards, that was why they stayed on the 2 line instead of moving up to the 1 was their non-conference. And I think that's all just I don't agree with any of that on the non-conference thing. I think that's important, but your conference schedule should matter for something. Playing as well in your conference, especially if it's a strong conference like the Big 12 was for Iowa State or the SEC was for Auburn. If you play that well and you're a top seed in your conference and you win your conference tournament, what's the point of the conference tournament if it's not going to have a bearing? You're going to put more weight on a game from early December than one in March. It just holds no weight to me. I think the committee, like I said, had it penciled in before the tournament started where everybody was seated, and they just wanted to have their homework done before Sunday. And if that's the case, they need to just tell these conferences not to have championship games on Sunday, move them to Saturday to have a full day to actually seed out the tournament instead of having the hay in the barn before everything's done.
Kind of like Heisman
Well, after
Trophy
this
voting.
year, after this year too, I'm sorry, it's going to be hard for anybody to convince me that Kansas didn't just kind of tank it, get ready for the big tournament. This conference tournament doesn't matter. I think you're going to see more teams doing that because the committee clearly showed that the tournament, unless you go all the way through and win it, has got nothing to do with your seeding. I mean, again, back to Auburn, I think they're number 5 in the net. They're in like the top 20 in Ken Palm and defense, probably top 10 in defense, I would imagine. And again, for them to be on the 4 line. And yeah, Alabama played a much tougher, preseason or out of conference. But heck, we lost every one of them. At some point in time, you got to get credit for winning.
Right.
It's not just you that whole quality loss crap that they talk about. You got to win something somewhere. Right. And like I said, I love Alabama basketball. I'll fight with Jeremy about Coach Oates every day. But he doesn't remember Anthony Grant and Avery Johnson.
Yeah. Apparently not. By the way, still owns the head-to-head on Bruce Pearl. Still owns that head-to-head. What was your second point there, Greg? You had said you had a couple.
The other one is that Goodman clown that writes for AL.com and his take on Saban quitting because he can't handle it anymore. He can't compete, so that's why he quit. And I was like, my God. He just signed the number 2 recruiting class in the nation again. He took the national champions to overtime, and you've got no more common sense than to think that he quit because he couldn't compete anymore. So he's just going to take his ball and go home. I mean, I just don't understand. You can just write and say whatever you want, and if you got a platform to do it on like this, but all of a sudden everybody thinks that their opinion matters. I mean, I don't think there could be anything further from the truth. I'm sure that he left. I mean, he said he left because of NIL and everything, but it's not because of that. It's because the kids, I think he tried, and I think most really, really good coaches try to make these kids better, try to give them opportunities, try to make them better men. And when they come in and sit down and want to know how much money you can get them or how much playing time, it's probably time to quit and go do something else. So that guy just, got under my skin with that writing on AL.com.
Yeah, no, I get you. What I'll say to that is there's a reason that I don't really give much credence or pay any attention anymore to anything AL.com does.
Yeah.
Especially in the last 10 to 12 years. Not just with their sports side, but their political stance. Everything is so topsy-turvy. And my problem on the political side, and I won't stray on this because this is not a political show, but it's the fact that they took a stance, period. It's not because they took one, against the things that I believe that my convictions stand for. I don't believe as a news organization that you should have a stance. I think you should report the news, Fox News, CNN, CNB, CSNBC, MSNBC, I think you should just report the news and then let the people decide on what they think about it, and quit trying to persuade things a certain way, like folks at AL.com, whether it's Joseph Goodman or one of my all-time lows, if you will, Josh Moon. I don't like these guys. I don't like they may be nice guys. Okay. They might be nice people. I've not met any of them, but like you say, when I read their stuff, it's almost like they have an axe to grind on a person or a university, an organization, whatever it is, a team. There's an axe to grind. They can't just report. They can't just, well, in Friday night action, this is what happened. Here's the yardage. Here's da. Coach after the game said that he needs to see his quarterback make better decisions. Needs to see his defensive line have more awareness and things like. You just can't just do that. You have to throw your more opinion out there and make it more of an opinion column than it is an actual reporter's column.
And you got to make sure that you're bringing up the negative.
Yeah,
you can't bring up the positive. You got to have that hot take. Again, I think it was Will Rogers that said back in the day that he always turned the newspaper to the sports page first, so you can read about a man's accomplishments versus his failures. And that's not the way it is with sports anymore. I mean, or anything. You're reading about whatever you can find on somebody. That's what they do. And I was going to say, where's Walter Cronkite when you need him? And I realized that you two probably don't know who Walter Cronkite was, or probably never saw his newscast. So
I do. I actually.
You do? Okay. Okay. Good. I was going to bring up one of my old man references, and that's the news.
You are. Part of a generation that only knows who Walter Cronkite is because of Jim Carrey's impersonation of him in the movie Bruce Almighty. So just for clarity there. But
as long as you get the information.
That's exactly right. Cody, what are your thoughts on that before we turn it over to you for your 10 minutes of crap?
Well, I think Saban got out right at the perfect time. There was very few times that you can go out on top or as close as on top. You think of the famous, John Elway winning 2 Super Bowls and then saying that's a career. I think Saban, you could tell kind of in his mannerisms that he'd been thinking about it for a while. And, whatever's come out about it, him coming out, I think he really does have a genuine want to help college athletics as a whole, with football, from where it's going. But at the end of the day, he made the choice that a lot of people were having a hard time wrapping their heads around. So a lot of these things are coming out of, trying to find reason in it that we just don't really know because we weren't in that room. We weren't in his head.
Right. Well, I will say this too, and we'll move forward. And Cody, I'll give you the floor. Not speaking from a fan standpoint, just overall in general, he did what he said he was going to do. When he mentioned years ago, I think it was after he won his his third championship down in Miami, when they beat Notre Dame. His name began to circulate almost every year with one big coaching job after another, especially Texas. Every few years when the Texas job would be opened up, he would get associated with going to take the Texas job because that Texas oil money is just too much. And he would keep denying it and keep denying it. But one thing he always said was, when I feel that I will be a hindrance to this program and to the university as a whole, I will step down then. And he did it. He did it.
Yep.
That's one thing that, at least on this front, you can't say that Coach Saban was not a man of his word. He came out almost, it was the next day or the day after when he sat down and did that interview with Reese Davis, and said, I just felt like I could no longer contribute or keep up with the way that I felt it needed to be done. He did what he said he was going to do. And whether you're an Auburn fan, an Alabama fan, an LSU fan, or maybe a USC fan from afar who just hates the fact that he kicked your butt with a freshman and Jalen Hurts, you at least have to respect the man because he didn't hang around. And some coaches don't know when to let go. I've got all the utmost respect in the world for Coach Joe Paterno. And all his years that he, made Penn State football what it was. I know how it ended up there. Some folks might not like him, and I understand it. I get it. But just from a pure coaching standpoint, I got all the respect in the world for him. But he was one of those that did not know when to step away. Could you say the same about Coach Bowden? I don't know. So Coach Saban did what he said he was going to do. I mean, and so I kind of admire him for that because, when you do something for 50 years and it's something that you love, how do you step away? How do you just walk away, just up and decide it's time to leave and then just do it? He may come back at some point. I don't know. Michael seems to think he will. I don't think he will. He's in his 70s. Go enjoy that. Go enjoy those grandchildren. Yeah. Go enjoy time with Miss Terry while you've got it. Time is short. Time is precious. Go enjoy it while you got it. Let's move on. Cody, what's on your mind for 10 minutes of crap?
Well, first, I'll just make it quick on NASCAR. I'm a big NASCAR fan.
You're the first one to bring it up on this podcast.
I'm sure I am. I'm probably the first one to bring it up in a lot of places. But this season has been incredible. If you've been out of it, or if you haven't, you watched it back in the day, or you just get it. It's a great time to get into it. This race this last weekend was incredible. That it was an old school race that you haven't seen in decades. So, and you had the 3 wide pass for the win at Atlanta a couple weeks ago. It's just been it's back to where it used to be. It kind of strayed for about a decade there or more, but it's getting back to where it was. So that's kind of where my head's been at the last 24 hours, is thinking about that race yesterday.
I'm not a NASCAR guy. The only thing I can contribute to that comes from the movie Cars. I think it was Mater. They're making another left turn. I don't know. That's all I got.
You want to see what it looked like 24 years ago? This fell out of a book of mine. I don't know if y'all can see it.
There you go,
dude.
Look
that's awesome.
Dude, hold that up a little closer there. Let's get a good peep show going here, dude. Now, who are you with there?
That's Jeff Gordon.
That's
at
Jeff
Darlington.
Gordon.
In 1999, I was giving him the pole award. He won the pole that day. Yes, sir. Courtesy of the people at Anheuser-Busch.
I'm learning more and more about you.
Yeah, I used to have game. It's all gone now. Like I said, I peaked in high school, but hey.
That's pretty awesome.
It was fun. It was a blast. Hey, that whole picture literally took like 7 seconds. They asked me if I wanted to do it. I was in a booth with them, and I said sure. They take you down there. They stuck that hat on me crooked, had me holding the award. He came out of a SUV and walked over. There's 300 reporters screaming at him. He touched it. They took a picture, and the biggest bodyguard I've ever seen in my life was dragging me off away from him.
Nice.
And that was it.
Nice. Hey, I will say this for NASCAR too. He mentioned Jeff Gordon. Kids today don't even know who that is. And at one point for my generation growing up in elementary school, he was like the superstar stud for NASCAR. It's Steph Curry and LeBron in the NBA for kids today. For like my generation and yours, Greg, and even Cody, it was Michael Jordan and such in the NBA. But in NASCAR, it was somebody like Jeff Gordon. And the only thing I can tell you is this: he drove the coolest freaking car I ever saw. And I'm not talking about the original DuPont. I'm talking about that Star Wars Episode 1 car. That was freaking cool. Even though the movie wasn't, it is what it is. It's gained its own little pop culture fandom now here lately. It's been redeemed a little bit. That was the coolest car because it was Star Wars. Who knew you could put Star Wars on a race car going 200 miles an hour, making left turns and only left turns?
Cody, who's your driver?
Right now, I like Bubba Wallace. He's a very unpopular guy. I like the unpopular guy. I'm an underdog guy. And if not him, Denny Hamlin would be next. I used to hate Denny Hamlin when he was coming up and everything. But here in the last couple of years, I really liked that he's and he won yesterday. So that's probably another reason why I was thinking about it.
So I used to not go and kind of almost got kidnapped to go to my first one and then fell in love with it for quite a while. Been to probably 11, 12 tracks. But I was a Ricky Rudd fan. And when he retired, man, I couldn't find anybody else. It just kind of all went away.
I did get to go to one NASCAR race down in Talladega many years ago. I was a kid. And they may still do it, I don't know, but they did like a Cub Scout day where Cub Scout organizations from all over the state could come up and they would get you in free, but you also got to race your Pinewood Derby car. Do y'all even know what Pinewood Derby is?
I was in the Cub Scouts.
Okay,
I had a Pinewood Derby car.
We got to race our Pinewood Derby cars outside the track a piece there, not far away from where all the trailers were parked and such. I vaguely remember that, and so we kind of got to see them through the fence, and it was pretty cool to see that. And of course, you go race your car, and then after you race your car, you get to go and be in the stands and watch the race. And so I don't really remember the race. I mean, I'd have to ask my dad. I was probably 8 or 9 years old. I mean, I was young. Yeah. But I do remember thinking it was cool because Jeff Gordon raced in it. And it's the first time I'd ever seen anything go that fast. I didn't know that was a thing. My mom is a maniac on the road and still is. She's got one eye on the road and one eye on the mirror, putting her mascara on, all the while 2 tires are hanging off the left side of the mountain. And you're in the back seat begging God to have mercy on you. But no, I didn't know anything could go that fast. So that's my only NASCAR experience. And I'm not saying I did enjoy it. I just never got into it. Never, ever could get into it. My grandfather loved it. Don't go over there on a Sunday afternoon. He's got the race on and he's not going to want to talk to you while it's on. They take a commercial break. You got about 2 minutes to talk and say what you need to say. After that, watching making 500 left turns, making left turns for 500 laps.
Well, that's what I told. I've got several friends, that were like, I've never been, I'm never going to go. It's stupid. I'm like, you've got to go to like Talladega or Daytona once because you cannot imagine. No one can explain to you, like you said, how fast and how close those cars are when they come around after about lap 2 and they're all 43 of them are together. Yeah. It's like, oh my gosh. And it's been so long ago. The last time I went to that race is when they were filming Talladega Nights. And they had that car with the Cougar sitting out there on it. And we had no idea what was going on until the movie came out.
So. You were there?
Yeah. Now, again, nobody in the stands knew what was going on. The pits were open, so we were down on pit road. And this car was sitting right in the middle. And it had the Cougar painted on the front of it. That's pretty much it. And then, there was no signs or anything like that. The trucks are going around with the flags on the back. And then, movie comes out 9 months later and it's like, holy crap, that's what that car was for. They were filming the movie.
So you're somewhere in the background of Talladega Nights.
Yeah, I might be in there somewhere.
I'm going to have to go watch that frame by frame now. Holy cow. Wasn't it a bag of Lucky Charms under the car, by the way? Is that what it was? Is a bag of Lucky Charms?
Yeah, something. Yeah, some type of.
Now you make me want to go back and watch that movie. If you're not first, you're last. First of all, I want to say it has been an honor, Cody, to have you on with us as we prepare for our what's upcoming at Fyffe. I'll kick it off. here this evening or today when I let you know that if you haven't purchased a yearbook yet, now is getting the nitty gritty. It's almost your last opportunity. Yearbooks are $65 plus $6 added on to that if you want personalization. So without personalization, it's $65. If you want it personalized with your name on the front, it'll end up being $71. Senior ads to be put in the yearbook are going now for $45 for a quarter page, $75 for a half page, and a full page is $150. So that's the advertisement that doesn't. I may be wrong on this, so I don't want to speak out of turn necessarily, but that ad also would get tacked on to your yearbook fee. If you buy the yearbook, you then buy the ad for your senior, depending on what size you want, a quarter, half, or full page, and the price goes up. The sale of the yearbooks will end on April 5th. You can find out more on this info from the Fyffe High School Facebook page. I think they've got one of them. What do you call them when you put your phone up and you scan the screen? Like a barcode type of thing. Anyway, they've got one of them up on the Facebook page of Fyffe High School. If you need yearbook information, go there and find it out. Greg?
All right, so tonight, baseball is in full swing. You got the varsity and the junior varsity baseball will be at home versus the Eider Hornets. Weather's getting a little bit warmer than it has been earlier in the week, so time to get out because tomorrow everybody heads up to, or the varsity heads up for a doubleheader at Eider. Weather permitting, it's supposed to rain tomorrow, so, you might want to get out there and watch them at 5 tonight. First pitch will be at 4:30 both days, and then Saturday they'll be home to Battle Whitesburg Christian with the first pitch at 11 a.m. And then you got softball. Actually, we'll head to Eider tonight with first pitch being at 4:30. So get out and watch these young men and young women play some great, sports there.
And by the way, when you do get out and you go to the Fyffe game tonight, make sure to stop by and visit our friends over at Froggy Freeze Shaved Ice and tell them we sent you. Tell them you listened to the podcast. Adam, Greg, and special guest Cody Walker said for you to go get you a shaved ice. And folks, if you're listening and you don't understand why we say this, it's because you're missing out on something really, really good. And if you've never had a shaved ice, I would recommend combining strawberry and banana. Maybe add a little cream there if you like a little extra sweetness. Oh my goodness gracious. But second of all, they are the official sponsor of Fyffe Focus, the podcast, and we're so thankful for them coming on and really helping us make sure that we can continue to do what we do. Greg and I thoroughly enjoy this. So does JJ, JB, Drew, although they have other things going on in their lives. Greg and I, not so much apparently here lately because we're other than I think one episode, I'm in every one of them. I think Greg's only missed one, but
I missed one.
We thoroughly enjoy doing this, and it's in large part because of Johnson's Froggy Freeze that we get to do this very podcast. They bring it to you each and every week. Go by, tell them the folks at Fun Radio and the Red Devil Radio Show sent you. I promise you will not regret it. Cody, I got to get you up here sometime to get you a shaved ice. What is your favorite flavor of shaved ice? Do you do shaved ice?
Oh yeah, pina colada. That's a great one.
That's mine. There you go.
See, I knew y'all would become fast friends.
Yep, right there.
Cody.
And by the way, I was going to say, and Cody, being an Alabama grad, both my daughters stabbed me in the back and graduated from Auburn. So there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
Cody Walker from the Brewer broadcast team, as well as the Alabama High School Football Historical Society website that we're going to call it the Historical Society, just shorten it. And they do a whole lot more than just football nowadays, folks. Go on the website, check it out. If you see a helmet on there, Cody had a hand in it. I promise you that, and making sure that they get updated and all that. Cody, thank you so much for spending some time with us, man. It's been great chatting with you, brother.
Thanks for having me on. I enjoyed it.
With that, folks, we bid you adieu. Farewell. May God bless each and every one of you. And as always, go Big Red.